GaryVee, welcome to The Mentor.
Thank you for having me.
Gary's in the house. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's very cool for me. Let me
Thank
tell
you.
I'm a big fan of yours.
Thank you so much.
So, what we like to do for our audience, at least, is that our audience loves to know a little bit about the person. I mean, you know, you're a public figure. Everybody probably follows you on Instagram and all the various other places that you put out your material, but probably don't get that much time to hear really about the GaryVee story.
Sure.
Who is Gary Vaynerchuk? Like, I'd like to know.
You know,
Tell me.
it's a very classic immigrant story, you know, of a boy that's born in a deeply communist country like the Soviet Union, coming to America, which is a very capitalist country, in the late 70s. Unfortunately, there was not a very good economy at the time when we came, so these golden streets that my parents were promised were even worse than they were in Russia. So much so that some fun stories have popped up recently in my family of like even debating to go back.
Serious?
Yeah, which was kind of interesting even for me. So, you know, it was a lot of struggle. You know, I always tell a lot of my friends that I'm far more similar to their grandfather than I am to them, because I was born in the old country, because I came over, because I worked all the time, because there was no entitlement. School was kind of almost weirdly secondary in a lot of ways.
School in America or school in
school in America.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't a good student, and you know, for a lot of second and third generations, school is the big play. But for a lot of first generations, you're just trying to put food on the table, and that's what my parents did. But I was so intertwined with them. Because I was born in the old world, and it was a very entrepreneurial story. By the time I was 6 or 7 years old, I was selling lemonade, I was shoveling snow, I was washing cars, I was selling flowers. It was...
What drove it? Like, why?
DNA. There's nothing else.
You didn't have to put food on your own table?
I did not. No. It was just more fun for me than playing. It was more fun for me when snow would hit the ground to go in the garage, grab a shovel, and ring people's doorbells and say, I will shovel your driveway for $5, than it was to build a snowman or sledding or throw snowballs at each other.
Was it a game?
It continues to be a game.
Yeah, so even then it was a game then.
100%.
Work was a game.
Yes, and an enjoyable game. I think one of the reasons I'm successful, and one of the things I try to push a lot of people to think about is, can you love your process? You know, if you're in this, and entrepreneurship is cool now.
Yeah.
If you're in this. Too cool. That's exactly right. If you're in this to flex on Instagram, you're gonna lose.
Yeah.
And I was doing it when it was in the 80s and 90s in America. Entrepreneurship wasn't a thing.
That was actually when this country people thought it was something bad.
And America too.
Like, you're a bad dude.
If you're an entrepreneur,
Risk.
you're actually a loser living off of mommy and daddy.
Yeah,
it was. You're exactly right. And you and I know this. A lot of the kids don't know.
Yeah.
Now, it's like being a rapper or an athlete.
Yeah.
It's incredible for me to watch what's transformed over 30 years. But I was willing to do it because it's all I could do. I listen to athletes, actors and actresses, singers, artists, and in their documentaries, inevitably, they're like, well, I just couldn't do anything else. And as an entrepreneur, that's how I think.
So do you think, you know, like, there's a lot of hard luck stories that I hear around the world, and like Mike Tyson's a good example.
Yes.
Like, he had nothing,
Yep.
and he used sport as his way out.
Yes.
Do you think entrepreneurship is a way out?
You know, I think
Back then.
I think it is for some. I do. I don't think it was for me. I didn't feel desperate. I didn't grow up in an environment that scared me.
Did you have choices?
I did have choices,
Yeah.
to be frank. I did. I could have decided to be a good student. I just loved it. I love it now. I love it. I mean, I woke up on the flight here from the US, I woke up 1 a.m. Sydney time, knowing that it was probably in my best interest to sleep a little bit more to get on time here. But I was so happy that I woke up because I couldn't wait to go on eBay and look up the value of sports cards, because in the last month, and really over the last year, but in the last month, I've gotten white hot on the theory that sports cards are about to make a comeback, and I want to buy up as many soccer and basketball cards as I can because I think they're going to go up a bunch. That's an energy that and I'm going to make no money. I'll make more money speaking in this 4-city tour during this week than I will in the countless hours I put in over the next year trying to buy up Messi rookie cards or LeBron rookie cards, but the action of the game, the what right, something that nobody else saw. I'm far more proud that I saw social media, Facebook, Twitter, those things, than the money I made by making those bets.
Can I ask you something? I mean, like, you're an intense dude.
Yes.
You are. And that's cool. I'm similar, like but in a different way. And a lot of people don't like it, okay? But I can just see you talking about just like the cards now.
Yeah.
What is it in the fabric of Gary Vaynerchuk's life? You're going to say it's in your DNA, but what is it that in your social development that actually was formed all the layers to get you to be so intense? Because you can't be good at what you do unless you're intense. You got to love it, get it,
yeah.
But you got to be intense.
I think
intensely.
I think being on your own, you know, like not having the luxury, which I think is a disadvantage, of an over-coddling nature.
What does that mean, being on your own?
You know, as soon as I was 4, 5, 6 years old, I'm outside playing by myself.
No brothers and sisters?
I did, but you know, they were 3 years younger and 11 years younger, so at first it's me, and so no brothers and sisters. A mother that grew up in the Soviet Union, where the framework was go outside and play. The 80s, when you could still do that in America. So crossing the street, playing in the woods. I mean, there's 15-year-olds that are being watched by their parents more than I was watched when I was 5.
Kills me.
Of course it kills you, because you know exactly the vulnerability. Yeah. We're living in a time where everyone's a zoo animal. They don't know how to live in society because parents are such helicopters and 8th place trophies, and you know, nobody's allowed to lose, nobody's allowed to cry.
That on Instagram, 10th place.
Saw that?
Ribbon, I saw that today.
So for me, I think what's in my fabric is having to scrap. I'm from the dirt. I had no choice.
Yeah.
I fight.
Yeah. And does that build your intensity though?
Of course.
And does that wear you out?
Not for me.
No?
You know, I'm empathetic that it might be too much for others. I respect that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I just also can't live my life based on other people's judgment.
But is mum or dad energetic like that?
You know, in different ways, yes, but neither like come across in the way that I do. I think I'm a pretty interesting blend of the two. I'm much more of a showman and high energy than my father, but I'm deeply competitive and the work ethic. My mom is not a showman either, but her side of the family is, especially the men. So, you know, no, you know, I'm different than both my parents, but obviously, because it's so easy for me to read, I understand the pieces of the puzzle that I got from both of them to how this happened.
Are they proud of you?
Oh, immensely. And that
How important is that to you?
Oh, unbelievably. I'm a uncomfortable advocate of my parents. I'm a deeply grateful child. I mean, I'm writing a book in my own head that I eventually put out called Perfectly Parented. You know, most people hate their parents or dwell on their parents, which is probably not true, but spend a lot of time judging what their parents did wrong instead of thinking about what their parents did right. I'm sure my parents did tons of things wrong. I'm just incapable of focusing on that. I'm just so grateful for the things they did right.
So the difference, so there's a lot of people out there, I mean, you're a doer. The intensity brings effort, and with intensity you get a lot of execution. But were you a dreamer as a kid? Did you sit around dreaming? Did you sit around, because I mean, you're going to sell lemonade or whatever you're going to do. Did you sit down and plan it? Like you woke up one night and you're thinking about your cards?
Yes.
Did you do it as a kid?
Only in the most macro level.
Yeah.
I very early on decided that I was going to buy my favorite football team, the New York Jets, and I've stuck to it for 35 years at this point. So yes, I would say I dreamt about that. I dreamt about making a mark in the wine business and building one of the large retail companies in America. I did that. I thought about disrupting the ad world in a way that they couldn't see coming. Putting the final pieces on that right now. So I dream currently of leaving an incredible legacy and having thousands of people show up to my funeral because of the value I provided with no ask in return. So yeah, I dream, but I'm too grounded in practicality to be a talker. You know, I would be embarrassed to talk and not execute. I almost put things out to put the pressure on making sure I execute so that nobody could ever play a clip, because I record everything, of you talked a big game but you couldn't do it. Now I'm fine, unbelievably fine with not achieving my goals. I'm not fine with not trying to.
You gotta have a crack. A good hard
Gotta
crack.
have, like, a real crack.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, one of the best cracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that I can feel.
Yeah.
I love losing, believe it or not, because that means I deserved it.
Yeah.
But I love the way you delivered that sentence. It excited me. A real crack, an all-time crack.
Yeah.
Last breath, I did everything. Went as hard as I could.
There's nothing left.
There's nothing left. I wish there was a couple more years because I'd still be cracking at 100. But if this is it, I don't want to regret. I don't want to regret. And you have to be careful because a lot of times one part of your life you may leave no regret. You know, I spend a lot of time trying to be thoughtful of not being a man of the world at the expense of my own children. You see that a lot. I read a lot of obituaries. I watch a lot of famous or people of notoriety pass and the world mourns, but their kids have very subtle, interesting, yeah, dad was awesome to the world. We wish we had a little, you know, I read it. Yeah. I read it because I inherently understand it and I want to hedge against it because I want to find the right balance. I'm aware of it. But yes, that's how I see it.
Like a lot of people, like you get them all the time. And they are dreamers. I mean, I've seen you interview some of the people at some of your talks, you know, and God love them, they get up there and they want you to solve a problem for them. They ask you a question and they're looking for an answer. And I see these dreamers. I mean, what do you say to them about balancing the difference between dreaming and execution? I mean, how do people work out? Because you've got to dream hard a lot, and then you've got to stop, and you've got to start executing hard a lot, then you've got to go back to dream, because your life can't be just about executing, it's got to be about dreaming.
That's right, you have to
you
have to strategize and execute.
Without people saying you change your mind all the time.
First of all, I think changing your mind all the time is the core strength of a human being.
You know, people say to me, and I say, I'm just reassessing what I'm doing.
My dad used to get so mad at me. You just said a week ago that we were gonna sell rosé. I'm like, I changed my mind. Customers came in, I didn't like the way it felt. I changed my mind. Yeah. I think changing your mind is a huge strength. It's funny, I was about to answer and we brought up the change of mind. I think it's the same thing. I think a lot of people don't fire people, don't change their mind because they're greatly insecure. This is an enormous game of insecurity. You know, why do people dream and not do? They're insecure. They inherently don't think they can do it.
The system makes us a bit that way too. I don't know about America, but in this country here, our regulatory environment,
yes,
it sort of enhances this insecurity, which puts you in a position where you can't fire somebody.
Yeah,
I've got some of my guys here.
I'm a lot more educated in the UK version, and I'm aware that the Australian version's closer to that. That is the great vulnerability to anything that eliminates merit is bad.
Yeah.
If somebody sucks and you can't fire them, the whole thing's broken.
Yeah, I mean, I battle with it all the time. It kills me. And like I even did a TV show here about what I actually had to say, you're fired. And it's not very Australian to do that because it's considered uncool to fire somebody. But in my business, like, I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't put up with something that doesn't work.
More importantly, it leads to entitlement, and entitlement is poison.
Yeah.
100%.
We just had a chat about what sort of drove Gary. Gary, look, one thing, I want to talk about some practical stuff now because we've got a lot of listeners who are desperate to emulate people like you. They actually, you know, people actually love you. I mean, I talk to them. I've been talking to a lot of people since you're going to come on the show. Everybody just raps, and I've been following what's going on at the three states you're talking about on the NAC, National Achievers Convention, and I've been watching all the videos. Everyone's saying great stuff, but where do you advise people to say, look, this is just not about me having followers and people loving me, and that's important. But what do you say to people? How do you actually turn it into a business? Otherwise, you're just wasting their time.
So I think there's a lot of ways to do it. So, you know, it's really funny. You and I are super aligned with this, which is, at the end of the day, things have to become practical.
Yeah.
You know, and during the break, I was saying, you know, you don't pay your bills with followers, and I believe that. I'm also a very interesting messenger when it comes to this because unlike many of my contemporaries that kind of look like me, one of the core reasons everybody loves me is I don't actually extract value out of my audience. Now, a couple things. There is nothing wrong with extracting value out of your audience. This is the free world. Nobody has to buy your program or your offsite or your master, you know? So what's interesting about what I do is I build businesses that don't have to do with my audience, right? So VaynerMedia works with Fortune 5,000 companies.
Yeah.
You know, so my audience is not the CEO of GE.
So can you connect the two then? Can you connect the audience?
I think the way you know, it's really interesting how I connect the audience. Let me give you an example. It is very clear to me that we have 1 to 2 clients at VaynerMedia right now that are client, that I would argue that the tipping point to why they chose VaynerMedia versus is because their 17-year-old son of the decision maker thinks I'm cool.
Right.
Brand. Got it?
Yeah.
But it's funny, let me go here because I think this will bring value to the audience. I wrote a book several years ago that did extremely well called Jab, 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 Right Hook. I thought I was writing it for the opposite of who we're talking to. This enormous group of people on the internet who only sell. Buy this, buy that, have no interest in value, only want to do top of the funnel and landing pages just to convert you to their $900 ebook. No soul, really gross. And I was trying to teach them like, hey, take a step back. How about a little romance? You don't have to try to close at the bar at every move.
Can I buy a drink?
You know, not even that, you know what I mean? Like half these characters on the internet are just like right at it. So I was like, hey, jab, jab, jab. Give it some value, give some value, give some value, then ask, don't expect. What was interesting is that's who I thought I was doing it for. What it ended up happening was it was actually who you're going for. The people that most responded to the book were people who were super ideological and actually were very frothy and almost hippie-like, building great content, bringing so much value, but were actually scared to go in for the sale. You know, my great ability to both be selfish and selfless, in balance, in harmony, pulling hard from both sides, has a lot to do with what's working for me. So, you know, listen, at the end of the day, vanity metrics, whether that's followers on Instagram, whether that's the jewelry or car you drive, no matter what it is, at the end of the day, underneath all of that, there needs to be something tangible and real. And if you're not asking for business, and more importantly, if you're not selling something you believe in, you're finished. The single reason I think I'm a great salesman, as somebody who hates to ask for a sale, is because I deeply believe in what I'm selling. Whether it's the wine I produce, whether it's a sneaker collaboration I have with K-Swiss, whether it's Vayner. I sit in this, do you know what it feels like to sit in this room and know that VaynerMedia is the best marketing firm in the world? It's empowering. You sell with conviction. And I just watch way too many people either be deeply insecure about what they're selling because deep down they know they have no idea what they're selling.
I said they don't know what they're selling.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they're just broken. They just so care about money. They know exactly what they're selling, preying on people's fears.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny, you know, because I always talk about this whole point, like, you know, I'm in a home loan business, and I was in a home loan business many years ago with a well-known person in Australia. And he once said to me, and I was a young guy, and I was trying to get in to buy half my business. And he asked me the question, because he's about to invest, you know, in those days, a lot of money, $25 million into my business. And he said to me, what business you in? And I said, well, I was about to say I'm in the home loan business because my company was called Wizard Home Loans. And he said, don't say home loans. And I was stuck.
Yeah,
I didn't know what to say. And he said to me, and he gave me the answer. He said, you're not selling home loans, you're selling people's hopes and dreams.
That's right.
And he said, that's what your messaging is. And that's what I love doing. You know, even today, my other business sells home loans. We still do home loans. And I was only thinking about it today when I was coming down to the studio. I actually love lending people money to buy a house. You know, I love lending money to people because they get so happy. You know, like and that's like if my branches around Australia put up on Instagram a photograph of them standing there next to someone who's just with their wife and kids, or whatever their arrangements are, in front of a sold sign with a key, just about walking in the house, that's the best feeling I can get.
When you're selling hopes and dreams and it's practical, that's amazing. Unfortunately, a lot of people sell the other way. They sell against people's insecurities and fears.
Yeah,
I hate it.
Yeah.
There was a great thing that somebody said to me years ago, and I say it all the time. There's two ways to build the biggest building in town. You either just build the biggest building in town, or you spend all your time tearing everybody else's building down. And I think about it often, maybe once a week. And if there's anything on my last breath that I'm most proud of, is I'm out here just trying to build the biggest building. I have no interest in tearing anybody else's building down. And watching other people navigate the other way is intriguing for me to watch. And honestly, I feel bad for them because I know there's real poison inside that system.
Can I ask you something about sport?
Yeah, sure.
For me, sport's really important. Just not just it's the fabric of my life, but it's also something that drives me. I always look to sport in terms of my own businesses, etc. But I can't live without sport. And I've seen some YouTube stuff for you getting involved in sport and training with a lot of people you know. Like they look like they might be baseballers or footballers over there. How important is sport to you? What's it do for your life?
Well, first of all, the reason I love sports is there's no hiding. It's why I love boxing. And you brought up Mike Tyson earlier. Man, I like boxing. There's just no hiding, you know?
Yep, I do know.
And so I love, you know what I hate about business? There's a lot of hiding.
Yeah.
You put entrepreneur on your bio on Instagram and everyone thinks you are one.
Yeah.
You know, and so sport's important to me because I love when it goes to 0-0, somebody won and somebody lost. I think both of us already reacted in this podcast around the thought of like 8th place trophies or not that. So that's important to me. Physically, I love to compete. You know, like if you said let's run to the door right now, you'd be stunned what I would do. Like I'd throw the dice, whatever it takes. I love the game. As far as physical fitness, about 5 to 6 years ago, I took it very seriously after not taking it seriously most of my life. And it's been a great addition, especially soft tissue work. My back I hurt during the liquor store days. It's been very important, but it doesn't release stress. I'm always fascinated by people that work out or run or do sports where they speak about the mental stress relief. For some reason, I don't have that. But what I love is the merit. God, I wish everything in life was sports because it's just so cool. You can't cheat. You know, people can talk about steroids and enhancement drugs, fine. But it's a really pure reality, and I love that.
But does it form part of your routine? Like, I mean, everyone will say, well, what does GaryVee do when he gets up in the morning? But like, what's your routine? In terms of sport?
I mean, I work out every day. I go to the gym. So that's what I do.
What sort of sport is it? We're talking about running, we're talking about lifting weights?
Yep, but mainly lifting weights, a lot of soft tissue work. That is something that I've become, fascia and all this, incredibly game-changing for the way, some of the flaws I had. I play basketball though, you know, I'm at 43, it's starting to get to a place where I'm a little worried about knees and ankles and things of that nature. I play a little tennis. I don't do as much competitive sport as I'd probably like to. But it is something I think a lot about of how to interject it a little bit more into my world.
But do you think it's as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's sort of running their own business, and you know, like there is a lot of you have to do with it. For me, it's like meditative. That's my
well, that's where I was going with this earlier. I don't get that.
You don't get that?
No.
Are you still thinking about work then when you're training?
No, but maybe. What I would say is. Not always.
Maybe you're not trained hard enough. Come on, you might have to come
Listen,
to a session.
I think you appreciate this. I'm doing everything hard.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
get it.
It's you know it's funny. I'm gonna answer it this way, and I've been thinking a lot about it for the last 4 years as meditation has grown in popularity, which is great because I love seeing people find balance in the tactic. I would argue that I'm meditating at all times.
Well, that's cool. Then.
And I don't know what exactly I'm saying right now, but intuitively. Man, I feel super great. Like I'm almost having conversation with myself while I'm having one with you. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm very grateful for it. I'm in really interesting harmony and balance I'm in a very funny framework. I'm basically in one place. If 8 people didn't die today, everything else is good. I've gotten I don't know if that was my great-grandmother, my grandmother, it was a very Russian thing, like every single thing we blessed to, everything was health, you know, everybody died so young in Russia. It was a miserable place. Alcoholism at scale, communism's bad. But I'm pretty much in the place of, I don't need that much of a mental release from my work. I actually am not that anxious about it.
I was gonna say it's because is everything going good then?
Yeah, but even when it's going bad, I don't think I like money.
Do you have bad times in work?
I have things that only time I have bad times is when I have to hurt somebody by firing them.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I hate that. But like, when somebody's firing, you should see me on a phone call or a meeting getting fired by a client. It is hilarious. They start it, I know exactly what's happening, and I basically bail them out within 5 seconds, but in a sweet way. Full accountability, don't worry about, like.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, I need the 18 minutes back to go.
How do you fire someone then in your environment? What do you say to them?
This has been the great.
How many chances do you give them?
I give them too many.
Yeah.
I would argue for as much as I hate entitlement, I'm very good at creating it within my workforce, but I've gotten a lot better. I really needed the lesson of this last company. Somewhere around year 6 of VaynerMedia, I looked around and said, everything I despise, I've created. I've overcoddled this organization. I've put too much on my shoulders. And my deep anger and dislike for conflict has created entitlement. And I had to go through a recourse, and the entitled kids weren't ready for it. And it was painful. Radical candor is not something that came natural to me. I'd rather stun you by firing you and giving you a great severance than giving you critical feedback along the way. It was just my framework, and it's something I've had to work on. I'm a much stronger operator today. Today, I had a couple conversations last month that I just can't believe I'm the one having them. I'm being so transparent. I'm not over-coddling it. I'm not sugarcoating it. And it's super unnatural for me. I do not like micro conflict. I'm a tough guy on video and the stage, but when it comes to one-on-one, I'm a honey over vinegar guy. But I've had to get better, and I want to be better. And so I've gotten, the conversations have become far more transparent, a lot. One thing that I struggle with is feedback from other managers, because I think they're incentivized to undermine their own direct reports. So I'm quite cynical to senior management giving me feedback on people underneath them. So the reason people get a lot of chances is because I don't make the mistake that most people do, which is blindly take the word of their direct report as an indicator, because I actually think they have more to lose and sometimes suppress the people underneath them.
Because the big question I get asked all the time, how do you deal with this? So are you saying to me then you go to the individual who, you go past the direct report, the boss, the manager, and you go to the individual and go and suss it out for yourself?
Not only do I do that, I follow everybody on social media, I read Slack, I'm doing a lot of recon to make sure I have a clear picture, because I think most people's vulnerability at scale is they blindly take the information from the most senior person who inherently has more to lose, and I think leads to bad behavior.
Because, and in your environment, for me, I will not cop it, but that upward management. So in other words, you're my boss, I'm managing you on your expectations of me. I mean,
it gets a little fluffy there. So I have to, not necessarily that, but not blind belief that the manager said this person sucks. I'm like, yeah, let's see about that.
This is a really important question to me. When Gary Vaynerchuk retires or goes off in the sunset and goes and lives next door to Richard Branson, what do you want to be remembered for?
That I gave more than I took. I really want to be remembered for that.
It's interesting, when I watch you, I see you are very generous actually at a massive speed when you speak on YouTube and various other places. And I think it's actually, I was actually curious, is that generosity? Is that you wanting to give more than you take or more than you receive? And do you think that you've achieved that so far? If you stop today?
I think so. I think that the thing that alpha winners like you that are very close to me and know a lot of details are surprised by is how much I'm not driven by the thing that I share many things with many of you, but I just am not in it for the things that I thought I was in it as a kid. What ended up happening was being a millionaire or a billionaire, I'm just not in it for the money. I'll take it. I want it. I want to buy the jets. But I would much rather be known who I am versus others. I could easily get the jets. If I could switch to being a more selfish individual, I don't know if anybody can extract more value out of humans than me. It's just I got very lucky, in my opinion, that is not my framework, and I enjoy the admiration versus the extra zero in my bank account.
Well, for me, that's really refreshing. I love that answer. That's fantastic. And I have to say to the people listening to the show, when Gary walked in, I expected a an Anthony Robbins moment with like lots of noise, and he came in very humble, and he introduced himself to everybody in the cast here, everybody. And to me, in our country at least, that's refreshing, and that's very Australian for us, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for saying that. Thank you so much for saying it. Real pleasure.